Hey, everybody. It's Saturday, April 4th, and we're getting ready to kick off our live about destinations. So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to start logging in, and I'll watch the tab to see how many people are already in. Hopefully we won't have the lag that we had last week. As nice as the weather is, I'm sure there's a lot of people outside, so hopefully the internet won't be quite as bogged down. So I'm going to ask you guys to give me a thumbs up if you're here. All right. Again, we're just going to get started in a few minutes. I usually give everybody about 5 to 6 minutes to get logged in and get started. So in the meantime, I'm listening to my dog yap at probably the FedEx or UPS man out there. She's the yappiest little thing in this side of the Mississippi. All right, do we have anybody on board yet? Hello? Anybody? Anybody? Hello? Okay. Haven't seen anybody jump on board yet. So I'll give everybody a couple more minutes. In the meantime, this week has been another long week. I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat as they're staying home and staying secluded and isolated from everybody. Hello, hello. This is unusual because usually by this time there's at least 3 or 4 of you that are on. Da, 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 da. Should have some background music, right? I'm wearing my Jamaica shirt, so maybe I should be playing some Bob Marley. Okay, I'll give everybody a couple more minutes, and if nobody shows up, then I'll just run through some updates and what our plans for next week are, and then post the information in the page. So I'm sorry if you can hear my yappy dogs. Again, probably just the UPS man. They hear him come down the street, and it's all, hey, Kim, how are you? Glad you could join us today. All right. Good deal. I'm glad you're here. So far, you're the only one on board, Kim, so we're just going to give everybody a few minutes to get logged in and join us. Working on taxes, yikes. Yeah, not our favorite thing to do, is it? I mean, you have until July, but who wants to wait that long to either hear the good news or the bad news, right? Now that I have an LLC, we turned our taxes over to my CPA to see if we're going to file it, hey, Angie, that way, or if we're going to file it individually in my LLC separate. So we're waiting to hear some news on that. Angie, I hope you guys are doing okay today. All right, I see some hearts. I see some smiles, some angry faces. Angry faces are all about the taxes, right? All about the taxes. Yes, you are here. Very good. Angie, did you guys get your pool fixed? Okay. Well, it's 1:06, and I usually don't like to keep these lives to more than 45 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. There's just two of you. All right. You got your pool fixed and you're getting flowers planted. That's awesome. I've been doing a lot of gardening myself. Oh, no pool fix. Sorry. Remind me to tell you about when our pool liner busted a few years back. It was horrific. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started today. All right, so welcome to our live about destinations. Today we're going to be talking about Hawaii and Italy and Israel. So before we get started on our destinations, I wanted to give you guys this week's travel updates. Every week I've been giving you guys kind of an overview of what's going on in the travel world. And this week, it really wasn't any different than the weeks prior, other than the announcements were fewer. So the biggest announcement was on Monday that Carnival announced that their sailings, hey Anda, I'm glad you're here. It's okay, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you can make it. So the biggest announcement came on Monday from Carnival that they have postponed or canceled all their sailings, Caribbean sailings, Mexico, etc., through May 12th. Hey Roberta, I'm glad you're here. Melissa, I'm so glad you made it. So May 12th is the date that they think they're going to get kicked off again for sailing. Royal Caribbean is May 11th. Carnival decided May 12th was their date. In the same announcement, about 2 days later, they announced that all their Alaska sailings, Carnival's Alaska sailings, were canceled through the end of June. So that's a big one. Alaska is a very popular destination, and a lot of people take the summer months to go travel to Alaska because it's really the only time you can go by cruise ship. So that was a big announcement. The Holland America ships, the Zaandam and the Rotterdam, I don't know if any of you are news watchers, but they were finally able to dock in Florida 2 days ago and unload their passengers, many of whom were sick, unfortunately. So there was an ongoing, it was just terrible. They were basically stuck out at sea until they could get port clearance to unload. But Florida finally let them come in, Fort Lauderdale, and they unloaded their passengers, and then they took charter flights to their home destinations. So that was a big one. There were no complaints so far from the passengers themselves about how Holland handled the situation. They all felt, very safe and secure. However, it's just a very terrible dynamic. Okay, so the other big news in the travel industry is, again, if you don't watch the news, you may not be up to date on some of these happenings. There's a lot of pushback, and a lot of people are disputing their credit card charges with airline tickets. So there was a big push from the travel industry to get airlines to, because most airline tickets are not refundable unless you buy insurance. And even if you buy insurance, you have to file the insurance to get your money back. You're not technically getting it from the airline, you're getting it from your insurance. So there's a lot of push in the travel industry to have airlines in this time, for this fragment of time that we're in, this crisis, to refund tickets that are affected by COVID. So that has not been completely resolved, but one of the leading airlines out there, Delta, announced on Friday that they are extending their credits. Hey, Kelsey, I'm glad you can make it. They're extending their airline credits for their e-tickets for 2 years. So the end of 2022. So if you bought a ticket within the parameters of their qualification. So if you want to check out that announcement, if you bought a ticket with Delta and I didn't book it for you, you can check that out on delta.com. Hit the coronavirus update tab at the front of the top, and it'll give you that update about Delta Airlines. So we're hoping that the rest of the airlines are going to follow suit, because a lot of people cannot travel within that limited time frame that they give you to use your airline ticket credit, so to speak. So that was a big thing. It was a big thing for my group that unfortunately got canceled at the beginning of May. A lot of them had already purchased airline tickets, and 3 or 4 of them were using Delta tickets. So now this offers them an opportunity to not only reschedule their reunion, but to use those tickets. Okay, so we have a good amount of people on board. So let's get started with Hawaii, Italy, and Israel. Aloha, ciao, and shalom. So we're going to start with, and I'm hoping this will make Roberta happy, we're going to start with the Hawaiian Islands. So bonus points to whoever can tell me how many islands there are in Hawaii, the state of Hawaii. Hey, Coy. I have Kelsey and Coy on board. So Kelsey's my daughter and Coy's my son-in-law. So Luke is probably right around the premises there somewhere. That's my grandson. So who can tell me how many Hawaiian islands there are? You get bonus points if you can. If Jessica were on, she could tell, probably. She used to live there. Anybody? Oh, somebody. Anda said 5. Roberta, you want to take a guess? Up the ante a little bit there, Anda. There are 8 Hawaiian islands. Did you know that? Mega kudos to you if you know the islands. I doubt, unless you've studied the Hawaiian Islands, that you know these islands. So, does anybody know what the biggest island is? Okay, all great guesses. There are 8. Okay, not all of them are. So, okay. The way I want to do this, talking about destinations, is, Kelsey guessed it, 8. Okay, great. The biggest island is Hawaii, the island of Hawaii. And the majority of people, when they go to visit Hawaii, they don't go to the Big Island, they go to Oahu, which is where Honolulu, Waikiki, the North Shore, the most prolific tourist attractions, so to speak, in the Hawaiian Islands. Roberta said, I'm not sure, but I would love to see them all. Well, we're going to get you there. And when we're finished today, you may want to rethink on how you're going to be there. Okay, so the Big Island of Hawaii is also called the Big Island. The Big Island, the major destinations are Hilo and the Kohala Coast. So there's a lot of beaches in Hawaii, on all the islands, but almost each of the individual islands have a different type of sand and or beach product, so to speak. So there's a lot of lava because Hawaii was formed from volcanic islands, or they were formed from volcanic eruptions. So a lot of the beaches have lava rocks. So you're thinking about these beautiful white sandy beaches, and yes, there are some of that, but especially in Kona, the beaches are lava rock, and some of them are even black. There's a website that I'm going to give you. This is the best website, and if you saw the video on the destination event, you actually watched a video from this website. So especially you, Roberta, because we're talking about sending you to Hawaii next year, I want you to check out this website, and it gives you all about, it's from the Hawaiian Tourism Board. There's videos, it talks about the culture of Hawaii, it talks about when the best times of the year to go, which islands you should visit if you want this experience. So I just posted the link for that. Jessica, I'm so glad you joined me. Andrea, I'm glad you're here today. Okay, so there's Hawaii, the big island Hawaii. There's Kahoolawe, which I've never heard of. It's a smaller island. There's Kauai, there's Lanai, there's Maui, there's Molokai. And for my family members that are on here, Jessica, what's up? Aloha. My family members on here, one of my dogs right now is named Molokai. Jessica was born on Oahu. Fantastic. Were you born in Waikiki or up in Schofield? And then there's the big island of Oahu. Niha is also another island. So typically when you go to visit Hawaii, most people end up on Oahu, unless they decide they're going to do Kauai, Molokai, Maui, and they're just going to do a tour of Hawaii. The Dole Plantation is actually on Oahu. Kelsey actually went there with me when we went on our last visit, 2010, 9. It's been some time since I've been to Hawaii, but the Dole Plantation is something that you cannot miss. It's a phenomenal tour. So some of the things that you want to look at when you're going to Hawaii is what's the best time of the year to go, okay? The best time of the year really depends on what you want to do. We talked a little bit about this at our last 2007, because you tormented me in basic. Oh, that's right. Andrea was in basic training, and we sent her postcards from Oahu. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Sorry about that, Moppet. So April is an excellent month to go. It's not too rainy. It's not too hot. And if you avoid the holidays, it's very affordable to go, okay? May is also a great month to go. If you go in the earlier part of May, if you wait towards the end of May, you run into schools ending. There's a holiday in there. Anytime you put a holiday in your travel plans, you're going to pay more for it. And then once school's let out, then things get a little bit more crowded. Angie, glad you're back. Okay, September is also a terrific month to go. There's fewer visitors. The weather is still fantastic. It's not too rainy. The water's still relatively warm as the Pacific is going to be. Just don't be under the illusion that the water there is going to be as warm as it is when you go to the Caribbean. It's two different temperatures, absolutely. So September is a great month to go. October is also a really good month to go because they have a lot of local events and festivities. The Polynesian culture is very, very rich. So October is on all the islands is a big month for different types of events and festivals that they have. So October is a great time to go. So Hawaii, beautiful. How many islands were there? Oh, nobody? Okay. Any questions about Hawaii? before I talk about how to see Hawaii, what's the best way to see it? Okay, so while you're typing any questions that you may have, so a lot of people are like, well, how do I decide where to go in Hawaii? Okay, so if you've never been to Hawaii and you don't have a specific thing that you want to see, you start with Oahu. Roberta, 8, you get another bonus point. Good deal. So if you've never been, you're going to end up going to Oahu first, unless you have a specific, venture in mind that you're going to go to Maui, you're going to go sit at the resort and dive, and that's what you're there for. So Oahu has all these wonderful things to see, like the North Shore, where there's surfing in the winter months, the Polynesian Culture Center, Waimea Falls, there's Pearl Harbor, of course. If you go, and I was talking to Roberta earlier this week, if you do not go to see the Pearl Harbor Memorial and the USS Arizona, you are missing out on, it's like going to Washington, D.C. and not going to see the monuments. I mean, you have to do it. Even if, history is not your thing. It's just so reverent, and you won't walk away from it untouched. It's extremely powerful. That's a good word for it. There's the Dole Plantation as well. The culture is so rich. It's just, the Polynesian culture is just, it's amazing. The whole lifestyle that you feel when you're on the islands is very laid back. The food is very vegetable, fruit based. Of course, if you don't do a luau, and if you don't get in the water and try some snorkeling and some diving at Hanauma Bay, and up in the North Shore, there's some great Chinaman's Hat in that area. There's some fantastic things to see and do. I myself have not been to the, that is un-American not to go see the Pearl Harbor Memorial. I've not been to the outer islands, so I know my target is when I go back to Hawaii, I want to do the islands. So let's talk about how you get there. So obviously, you have to fly. Okay, that's one way. You can now fly out of Dallas and Houston on a non-stop. When Kelsey and I went back in 2007, hey, Marilyn, nice to see you, figuratively speaking. So when Kelsey and I went in 2007, it took 18 hours to get there. It was ridiculous. It was the longest flight. I don't remember even flying overseas for that long. So now in Dallas and Houston has limited, Dallas has more. You can fly direct to Honolulu, nonstop, without having to stop in San Francisco or Los Angeles. So usually those are the two airports that are connecting. That's if you want to drive to Houston or, 8 hours. It's typically right now the flights when I'm swimming. Yeah, let's swim to Hawaii. I don't think anybody's ever done that. So those nonstop flights are terrific. The other way you can see the islands, if you don't want to settle just on seeing just Oahu, is going by ship. So you can take a ship that leaves from either Los Angeles or San Francisco and sail the Hawaiian Islands. It's a fantastic way to see the islands because when you're in port, Marilyn, have a good day. It's fantastic because you can go from port to port on all the islands. The ships basically skip from island to island, and some of them will actually spend the night in one or two of the ports. So you can also do an extended cruise from the islands and go towards the South Pacific. So I was looking at last week, there's a it was a Holland America cruise that was, I think, 28 days, and it went from San Francisco to the Hawaiian Islands, then down to Bora Bora and some of the other South Pacific islands, and ended up in Australia. Made me drool. I mean, that's very big on my bucket list. So you can see it by ship. It's a great affordable way to see it because you're not paying for food unless you eat on the islands, and you don't have to pay for your hotel. So there's land packages you can do for Hawaii, and then there's you can see it by ship. So you can definitely also island hop. So say you want to see one of the other islands, or at least two of the other islands, you can do a split trip. Say you do Oahu for 2 or 3 days, then you decide, okay, I'm going to go do Maui, and then I want to go see Kona. And you can actually do a split trip that way, and then fly back the reverse route and fly back to the States from there. So an awesome way to see Hawaii. There's so many things to do, so many things to see. If you're not a water rat, that's fine. You can hike up in Waimea. You can hike on any of the other islands because they're very mountainous. If you're not a water person, that's, it's okay. But if you are a water person, Hawaii is fantastic. So any questions about Hawaii? Jessica, do you have anything else to throw in there? I mean, you live there. I've just visited. I was lucky enough to visit there a number of times from Alaska, and then I got to take Kelsey a few years ago. So in my next trip to Hawaii, I'm going to do Maui and Kauai for sure, possibly Kona. That's on my list. I've had a dog named Kona. We've had a dog named Molokai. I think my next one's I'm going to name him Maui, him or her, my next dog. I name all my dogs after islands. So, okay. So if there's no questions about Hawaii, I'm going to say aloha, because that's how you say hello and goodbye in Hawaiian. So aloha. And now we're going to talk about Italy. Italy. Ciao bella. So has anybody ever been to Italy? Besides me. Okay. You did social studies projects, Jessica? Did you do any on volcanoes? Okay, so ciao bella. I am going to type in the website that you should use to check out Italy and what you would want to do. Is it okay to go and not like pasta? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a big pasta eater, and the food there is just phenomenal. Kelsey, then you have to get, woo. All right, so great comments. Koi, I'm always looking for travel partners, you know that. Okay, so I'm going to type in the website that I want you guys to use to check out Italy. So I did some scoping, and this guy, his name is Santorini Dave. He has a great website that allows you to plan your trip, except for booking it, from top to bottom for Italy. He had great, because when I presented today, I wanted to have some good knowledge about when the best time of the year to go, when, how affordable is it? Okay, so here's the thing about Italy. Italy is a European country that sits on the southern part of Europe. It has the northern hemisphere, the northern part of Italy and the southern part. The northern part is mountainous. That's typically where your wine country is, okay? Lake Como, one of the most iconic lakes in Europe, is in the northern part of Italy. And then most people, when they think about Italy, they're thinking about Rome and Venice and Florence and Verona, all those iconic southern cities, Naples, Sicily, the island of Sicily. So if you've never been to Italy before, you have to decide how and what you want to see. If you want an overview, if you want to hit 2 or 3 of the top 10 cities. So I'm going to read you the top 10 cities, by the way, you have to visit. Okay, and even if you only hit half of them when you go the first time, you do another trip and do the other half. Send me to the wine. Oh yes, all about the Chianti. The top 10 cities to visit when you go to Italy. Rome, of course, and you could spend a week in Rome and do lots of day trips out, and you still wouldn't see everything. I mean, the Colosseum, everything. Venice, Florence, Milan, Naples, Verona, Turin, Bologna, Genoa, and Perugia. I always have problems saying that one. So all these cities have something very unique to offer. So I don't know how many of you guys have seen those pictures of the coastline of Greece and Italy, and when they have these beautiful, colorful houses going up the coast, and that's the Amalfi Coast. So I'm going to start in the southern part of Italy first and go up. The Amalfi Coast, you have the Puglia area, you have the island of Sicily, Naples, that whole area down there, and Santorini, well, that's in Greece, Salerno, those are all cities and locations in southern Italy that are just amazingly beautiful. There's no other way to put it. And you travel north, and about mid-country, you have Rome, you have Venice, and you have Florence and Verona. Almost everything is within, a day's travel, except if you're driving from the top of Italy to the top, from the rim of the boot all the way down to the heel of the boot. Then you're looking at a good, 12 to 16 hour drive, or you take the train. Send me to the line. You guys crack me up. So then you move to the northern part of Italy, to where the Alps are at the very tip. You have Lake Como, you have Milan. The cities up there are much more culture oriented. That's probably a good way to put it. Milan is obviously the fashion center, one of the fashion centers of Europe. It's always been known for that. So it's very culturally forward. Rome is very historic. Venice it's a romantic city. It's also known for its food. Anywhere you go in Italy, you're going to have very specific foods and wines and cheeses that are specific to the regions. Obviously, if you're in the southern part, hey, Wadi, if you're in the southern part of Italy, it's all about the seafood. It's all about the clams and the calamari and all about the seafood. When you go to the northern regions, it's about the rich food that's grown. So mushrooms are a big thing in Italian cooking, and obviously pasta. So Italy, how do you see Italy? When you go to Italy, pick a destination in Italy, pick a city that you're going to go to first. So if you're really into history, Rome would be the place for you to start. And you would do all your excursions and all your travel plans in that Rome area. And you can travel out each day and come back to Rome, and you're still not going to cover everything that you could possibly see. So obviously that's the place to start if you're really into the history. Also, the island of Sicily is also very historic. There's a lot of Roman, if you're into mythology, so there's a lot of temples, old temples, My hubby's leaving. A lot of old temples that are in that region. If you're into more of the food scene, the Venice, Florence, Verona area, it's all about the wine and the food. The wine and the food. It's the pastas and the cheeses and just amazing, amazing food. And like my mouth is starting to water. I haven't eaten lunch yet. The food and the sidewalk artists. So the sidewalk artists, I'm glad you brought that up, Marilyn. The sidewalk artists, you're going to find those both in Rome, in Milan, Florence a little bit. Romeo and Juliet, if any of you have ever read Romeo and Juliet, that story took place in the Verona, Florence area. Joe's Italian makes a great tour of Sicily. My son-in-law has a great sense of humor. Well, I don't know if I'm taking you to Italy with that kind of sense of humor. Okay, so the best time to travel to Italy. The best time to travel to Italy, it doesn't matter which region that you're going to. Okay, the best time to travel is April to June. Spring, okay, and then September to October in the fall, the early fall. It's nice weather, moderate temperatures, there's fewer tourists, and there's lower prices. Okay, so it's all about the pricing. So when you pick these off seasons, same thing with Hawaii, you pick the off seasons, you're going to pay less. Anytime you travel during peak season, which is considered the summertime months because that's when 90% of America travels, and also Europeans travel a lot through June, July, and August, you're going to pay more. So the best time to go is April to June. May is really kind of my favorite month, especially in the Alp regions. That's when everything is starting to bloom, and it's spectacular. If you go in September and October, especially if you go into the northern regions, you may actually get some of those fall colors. And you may even get some snow if you go in late October and you're in the higher elevations in the Alps. The summer months are very hot, especially in southern Italy. I'm talking hot. It's not the dank, the very damp humidity that we have here, but think about being in a city like the size of Rome, and it's 95 degrees and it's sunny, like cooking. It's not very fun. So I don't recommend. Leaves more room in the budget for wine and cheese. Absolutely, Waddy. The average summer temperatures in Italy. If you're talking peak summer, it depends on which part of Italy you're in. Southern Italy, you're looking at mid 80s to the lower 90s. In the northern regions, you're talking 80s. But remember, in Europe, unless you're in a Western hotel, most places don't have air conditioning. Air conditioning is not standard in a lot of countries in Europe, unless you're in a Western-owned hotel or business. So it matters. And if you want to do a little B&B, that's fine, but be prepared. Read the fine print. Does it have air conditioning? Does it have central air? Especially if you're going through the summer months. So great question. The winter months. They're kind of dreary, especially in the northern realm of Italy. It's wet, it's cold, it's more temperate in Rome, but in the northern region, it's kind of rainy. There's no vegetation because it's not as temperate as the southern part. So, great if you're going to go for some skiing. The Italian Alps are fantastic for skiing as well, but it's really not the time to go if you want to really just enjoy the views, and Jay Rand can't live without some AC. I think most of us here in Louisiana are very spoiled when it comes to AC. So don't plan your trip to Italy for the January, February timeframes, even late December. It's not temperate, so to speak. Okay, so questions about Italy. You all got that website that I put up from Santorini Dave. It's just marvelous information that he put on that website. I was just super amazed when I checked it out. That's where I pulled the video. Actually, I pulled the video from the Italian Tourism Board, but which is also another website that I'm going to share with you. So this is okay. So how do you see Italy? No Louisiana humidity in Italy. No, you might, southern regions, you might have, up to 30, 40%. On a really, really heated summer, Maryland, you're gonna have maybe 50% humidity. The islands off the coast of Italy, it's just gorgeous. Beautiful temperatures, beautiful weather. It's, very iconic when you see those pictures of the coast in Italy. It's amazing. So how do you see Italy? What's the best way to see Italy? Really depends on what you want to go. So there's several options of how you see Italy. We talked a little bit last week about guided tours versus individual itineraries versus getting in a car and seeing it from one end to the other by yourself, or whether you do a group or an escorted tour, a small group or a larger group. The most economical way to see Italy, where you're going to see the key points, is to do an escorted group. When you do an escorted group, you have multiple, there is a sea Roberta in all the hotels that you would choose, but it's not typical in most households unless it's a newer development. So escorted groups, there are multiple vendors that we have out there that have itineraries, anything from doing a trip all around the outskirts of Italy, so you see all the coastline cities and destinations, to doing a countryside tour versus just a city tour, going from Rome to Venice to Florence up to Milan and then ending in Lake Como. There's multiple ways to do that. And again, when you're doing a itinerary like that with an escorted group or a small group, your hotel is included. Your transportation from point A to point B to point C is included, and at least one meal, if not 2 meals a day, are included. So it's the most economical way to see a lot of Italy and get a taste of it, so that you can plan that next trip back. Hey, I got to come back here and I really want to spend some time in Rome and explore more. Or, hey, I really want to go back to Venice and stay on one of the canals. I mean, so a tour like that is going to be anywhere from 7 to 14 days, and some of them are even longer, up to 21 days. It really depends on your time and what you have available and your budget, of course. Is the Leaning Tower of Pisa the only thing to see? No, there's multiple museums with artwork. Hey, Twyla, glad you're here. So there's multiple museums with artwork. The architecture alone in all of the Italian cities is Michelangelo type architecture. It's centuries old, and it's of the quality and standards of the great artists of Europe. It's just amazing. So that's your escorted tours. Multiple ways you can do that. The itineraries, there's hundreds of itineraries to choose from when you're doing that. You can also, oh, thank you. Twyla commented on the pictures on my wall. So whenever we sail to the Caribbean, I have, especially if we go to the Port of Roatan or Grand Cayman, I pick up a painting there's some artists in the port areas there. And so this is my dining room wall, the back wall with my Roatan and Grand Cayman paintings. And there's some at my office too that your mom painted, Twyla, that are marvelous, but I haven't seen the inside of my office in almost a month, unfortunately. Okay, so back to seeing Italy. You can also see it by ship. You can sail out of Rome or sail out of Barcelona, go through the Mediterranean, and then you do a tour by ship in the Mediterranean of some of the major Italian cities. Is that the best way to see the interior of the country? No, because when you hit the different ports, you have limited time to go visit. Okay, but when you hit the different ports, you have multiple excursions you can go see. And again, it's that teaser to say, I need to come back to Rome and stay for 3 or 4 days, or I really have to go back to Venice or Naples or to Sicily and just, make that my time in Italy. So you can go by ship, you can go by escorted tour, you can also rent a car and do an individualized itinerary. Now, just a word of warning, if you're cool driving in Houston and Baton Rouge and New Orleans, then you probably won't have a problem driving in Italy. However, if that makes you at all nervous, then Italy is not the place for you to drive, okay? Especially in the bigger cities, in Rome, in Florence, Milan. It can be a little hairy. So is it the thing I would recommend for a person who's never been to Europe, never been to Italy? Probably not. You can also take a train. The trains are fantastic in Europe. You can take a train and you would not love to drive. You would need to take some major anxiety pills. It's crazy, or some major Chianti. Trains will take you anywhere in Europe, anywhere. And it's the best way to see the countryside and the different sites as you travel to get from point A to point B. So say you want to do 3 days in Rome, and then you're going to travel down to Palermo, and you're going to spend 2 days in Palermo, then down to Naples and spend a night or two there, and then you're going to take the train and you're going to go up the coast and end up in Venice or in Florence. Train is a fantastic and economical way to travel. Choo-choo train for you. Okay. No, in Italy, they do not drive on the wrong side of the road. It's only in the British Isles that they do that. And some Caribbean islands that are British, they were originally colonized by the Brits, like Antigua and Anguilla, St. Thomas, they drive on the wrong side of the road. They just drive crazy in Italy. So, and again, the roads aren't big like they are here. So when we were in Verona, we were heading to Venice. This was my freshman year in college. The hotel that we were staying at was down this very narrow cobblestone street, and our big tour bus couldn't get in front of the hotel so we could unload because there was a Citroen. I don't know if any of you guys know what a Citroen is. It's a European car. It looks like a little box with a little hood. It's very small, very lightweight. Well, the bus couldn't pull in because there was a Citroen parked there. So a bunch of us got off the bus and literally just picked the Citroen up, moved it up the sidewalk so our bus could park. That's how small the streets are. So driving, I would not recommend it for a first timer. If you just don't want to do a group, I would recommend putting together a train itinerary for you. Individualized. The thing about going with a group, though, is that you get those express tickets to the big sites. Like if you're in Rome and you get to skip the line and go to the front of the line to see the Colosseum or the Sistine Chapel, to any of those iconic sites. So again, Italy, any questions about Italy? You guys have had some great questions. If I were to go back, not if, when I go back. I've actually been looking at putting together a group that does the countryside stops at the smaller towns through the Italian Alps and down towards Rome. And then I would like to do a group that does a loop around the boot and sees, we start in Rome, then go to Naples, Palermo, Sicily, and then take the ferry back and end up in Venice. That would be a group that I'd be really interested in putting together and escort. So when I say escort a group, that means I'm just part of the group. The tour guides with the companies that we pick the itinerary from are the experts. They use people that are from that area, subject matter experts, to guide the tours. So I am not a subject matter expert in any part of Italy. I just know it's gorgeous. I want to go back. I would love to go back to all parts of Italy. Really not that interested in going back to Milan. It doesn't really appeal to me. I'm not into fashion. I'm not into that forward culture, that very trendy European culture. That's not why I travel to Europe. So Milan doesn't really have a lot of appeal to me. I definitely want to go to Sicily and the coastlines. Well, Anna, we need to put it together, don't we? Okay, questions about Italy? Any questions about Italy? We are well into 45 minutes, so I'm going to make our Israel, shalom, I'm going to make our Israel discussion just a little bit shorter. Okay, so Israel. I've not been to Israel, so I can only answer questions that you have that I know, that I have knowledge of. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I will get that information to you and send it to you. One of the things before we start on Israel, flight time to Italy, Coy. Flight time to Italy depends on where you fly. Most flights go into Rome or Venice, outside of Venice, Florence. So flight time, because we're just so isolated here with connections, you're looking at a good, give yourself at least 20 hours. And that's not the actual flight from, let's say, JFK to Rome. That's usually about 7 to 8 hours. It's all the connective pieces. So you're going to have to give yourself at least a day. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, so Israel. Israel piqued my interest, and there were several of you that mentioned Israel was on your bucket list last week. So Israel piqued my interest last year when I was in Dallas at boot camp. I spent some time talking to there was a young lady there from the Israel Tourist Board. And she was so knowledgeable and so passionate about people coming to visit Israel. So, some people want to visit Israel as a Holy Land pilgrimage. Obviously, it's the #1 thing in pilgrimage trips to take from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv to Haifa, to see all the major sites in the Christian world. For me, it's all about the history. And Israel has a climate very much like California. And it's actually has a segment, like Northern California is wine country. Well, it's the same thing in Israel. And then you have the coastline, Tel Aviv. Here you go, compare it to San Diego, the Los Angeles area. So it's actually very appealing. It's one of the most #1 destinations to young professionals right now, because young professionals like active trips. So biking is huge in Israel. Running, half Ks or full marathons is a big thing in a lot of Israel, especially in the northern half. So it's very popular. The Tel Aviv area is also very happening for the younger generation. It's very hip. It's very forward. So there's a lot of discotheque kind of clubs and things like that in the Tel Aviv area. So there's something for everybody, even if you're not on a religious pilgrimage to see all those iconic places for Israel. So when's the best time to go? So the high season for Israel to traveling to Israel is June through September. When I say high season, that's the peak season. That means that's when everybody is there. So that's what you want to avoid. It's going to be more expensive and it's going to be crowded. And it's also going to be hot. Israel is not mild temperature, it's hot. The low season is December to February. So I had a client who at the end of December said, I want to go to Israel in January. Oh, January 2021? No, I want to go in 2020. So that was like 2.5 weeks, push it forward. So he went to Israel at the beginning of January, he and his wife, and they traveled, they did an escorted tour through Globus, which is one of our suppliers, and they loved it. It was phenomenal. But they did it in January, December, January, and February. So you might catch some rain and you might catch a few storms here and there. And they had one location, I think when they were in Haifa, they had some bad weather. But other than that, it was very moderate temperatures. So it was a good time for them to travel. April is very busy in Israel because obviously because of Lent. Okay. So the 5 major cities that you want to visit when you go to Israel, when you plan a trip to Israel, I'm going to start with the number 1 city, of course, is Jerusalem. The 3 largest religions in the world, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are all located in Jerusalem. It's a huge city. There's over almost 1 million people that live in Jerusalem alone. It's claimed both by Israel and the Palestinians. So there's obviously always some kind of conflict going on there. So Jerusalem, it's one of the number 1 destinations in Israel. Tel Aviv, it's the 2nd largest city in Israel. It's the site of the ancient tribe of Dan in Israel. Oh, and I have to give you guys the website. So this website, I'm going to type it in. This is the website straight from the Tourism Board of Israel. It's terrific. If you want to know anything about traveling to Israel, this is the site to go. And I'll post that there for you. Okay. All right. I know we're running long, so I want to cut this short. Haifa is the 3rd largest city in Israel. Rishon LeZion is the 4th largest city, and then Petah Tikva, and I'm sure I butchered that, is the 5th largest city in Israel. So all of the major cities in Israel have those iconic religious artifacts that you have, that you study about. When you go to this website about Israel, you just be amazed at the architecture, the cultures, the history. When I spent some time talking to the young lady that was from the tourism board, and then she presented to our group, it really piqued my interest that eventually I'm thinking maybe 2022, late 2022, I want to take a group to Israel. We have several vendors who specialize in journeys of faith. There's 2, we have 3 primary vendors that specialize. If that is your primary motive to going to Israel, is because you want to go on a journey of faith and you want to see those iconic Christian historic monuments or locations, there's some beautiful escorted tours available for that. Then if you just want to see the country, you want to experience Tel Aviv and you want to experience the northern part, you want to take a bike ride through the mountains in Israel, if you're an avid biker, you can also take that type of trip. So Israel, do not knock it off your bucket list, because it's much more affordable than you think. So, and I'm just going to use my clients that went in January as an example. Their tour, escorted tour, remember your hotel and most of your meals are covered, and your transfer to and from the airport are covered when you take an escorted tour. It was only $1,100 and some odd cents per person. Okay, and that was a 7-day tour. Their flights cost them about the same. So for under $5,000, they did a 7-day tour of Israel that included Tel Aviv, Haifa, all the major locations. And that was in January. And again, they had great weather. So when you're thinking about all these trips, you're thinking, oh my God, I'll never be able to afford that. If they had planned that trip, like started planning it now, for instance, they would have been able to deposit it and then continue to pay on it until it was actually 30 days before their travel date. Or be like them and you just decide, I'm going to book it right now and go next week. It took a little finagling to get them because the trip, the itinerary was actually closed. So it's best to plan these trips in advance. So Israel, any questions about Israel? Yeah, you spend more money in a day at Disney. Yeah. I've booked some Disney trips, and it just always blows my mind how expensive Disney is. So for all these destinations we talked about today, on my website and in my booking engine, we have something called destination guides. So if you go to my website, www.greatwhitetravels.com, you can plug in pretty much any location that you're interested in traveling to, and it'll populate a destination guide for you. Or you say, hey, Annette, I want to go to Hawaii, or I want to go to Rome. Can you send me some more information about that? So what I did last night is I prepared destination guides for most of the major cities in Italy. I did one for Oahu, and then I did a couple for Israel. So if you're interested in getting any of those destination guides, shoot me a message, and I'd be glad to share those with you. Or you can just go to my website. When are we going? Melissa, if I could travel every day, I'd be doing it, wouldn't I? When am I going to do a group to Israel? I'm thinking 2022 is going to be my target date for doing a group to Israel. The flight to Israel, so again, allow yourself 24 hours at least for that connect. It's all about the connection. So it took my clients, I think the trip there was 21 hours, and I think the trip back was 22 hours, but they had a couple layovers. One was at Heathrow, and I think the other one was in Atlanta. So Roberta, you're gonna add that to your bucket list. All right. Okay. So destination guides, if you're interested in getting any of those destination guides, let me know, and I'll be glad to send those to you. Okay, so a couple of announcements before we close off here, because we've been on here for almost an hour. Our contest, our CP contest that I told you guys about last week for the Love of Travel, went live earlier this week. A couple of you have already posted on my page underneath that post, so fantastic. I think Angie and Amber were 2 of you. So check that. I'm gonna share it again. If you follow the directions, there's weekly winners. You win CP goodies. And then there's a grand prize winner at the end, April 30th, that wins a 2-person cruise on Celebrity, a 7-day Caribbean cruise. So they announced yesterday, Friday. Yesterday was Friday, right? I'm like every day is kind of blending together. They announced this past week's winners, and it was a couple in Florida that won some CP stuff, some goodies. Okay, so my reward cards came in. Aren't those fabulous? There we go. Can you see those? So this is going to be today's winner. We'll get a bag, a wonderful AM Resort beach bag. I believe it's kind of like waterproof material. Really cool little beach bag. And it's filled with some CP goodies and one of these. So you can use this, whoever the winner is, to apply towards a land package, or if you want to apply it to a cruise, or if you want me to put it on onboard credit on a cruise that you're already booked in, if you win that, we can do that. So today's winner will win the bag, and it'll have one of these in it. Next week, there'll be another bag with one of these, so fantastic. Next week, we're going to do another Destinations Part 2. We're going to talk about Alaska, Mexico, and the Florida Keys. Okay, because I've seen a lot of you have put those destinations on your bucket lists. I'm also interested to see how many of you would be interested in doing a Zoom meeting versus a Facebook Live. I've been doing some experimenting with Zoom and with my GoPro, and Zoom gives us the opportunity to see each other as we're conversing, and I can actually use a background that I won't have this kind of glare that I'm getting. So if you're interested in Zoom, I may, do that for our last one. British Isles. Okay, Kelsey, we can probably squeeze that in. There's a high demand for the British Isles as well. Okay, so a lot of you have been sharing and you've been posting. I haven't had any new likes on my page this week, so make sure that you invite your friends and that they leave a message, who sent you. Because remember, we're giving away that $100 Carnival gift card on April 18th for the person whose name I draw. And every time you share, every time you comment, every time you post, I add your name to the list and you get multiple opportunities in that pot. Jessica needs to go to Scotland so she can go through the stones and find Jamie Fraser. A little Outlander, if you don't know what Outlander is, it's a series of books, and Jamie Fraser is the lead character in Outlander. Jessica and Kelsey may be fighting over Jamie Fraser. Okay. All right, any questions, anything else? Because I want to cut this down. Great live today. Thank you guys for joining me. I learned a lot of different things about the different destinations we talked about while I was doing our research. You can actually take a cruise in Israel too. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you can do a cruise in Israel as well. And one of the cruise lines actually does a Huckabee, cruise with Huckabee, and it's one of these religious, it's a go in faith trip. The cruise is all about, faith travel, and Huckabee actually is on it's like you travel with him. So you can also see Israel by cruise. All right, thank you guys for joining me. Melissa, me and J Ram totally making that trip. We have got to plan a trip with all my fun, cool friends to travel together. I think that would be amazing. And anybody else who wants to join us is more than welcome. So yes, once we're through this COVID mess and we regroup in the travel world, I will be planning some groups for 2021 and 2022 that will be land-based. I love cruising. You can put me on a ship any day of the week, but I also like to travel by land. So, look for those to come out, hopefully by the end of 2020, once we get our feet back on the ground. Thanks, you guys, for coming. Thanks for inviting people. Bye, Kelsey. Bye, Roberta. Bye, Melissa. Bye, J Ram. Bye, Twyla, Marilyn, Kim, Angie, Anda, everybody that joined me, Roberta. Appreciate you guys very much. And remember, like my Facebook page if you haven't already, and feel free to reach out anytime to book that fantastic travel, because this isn't going to last forever. Later, Gator. Bye, guys. Have a great afternoon.